In this video, we'll talk about getRecord wire adapter. And this adapter we can import from Lightning UI Record API. So we use this wire adapter to get the records data. And with this adapter, you can only get the record data, not the metadata or a layout information, only the record information. Okay, so let's look at the syntax. Syntax is again similar to the other adapter. You need a wire to call the adapter. Then you need to import the adapter, that is getRecord from the UI record API module. Then there are two ways to call this adapter. One is you pass the adapter configuration as record ID fields and optional fields. And the second way, if you don't want to pass the field, you can pass the layout type. And if you are passing the layout type, you have to pass the modes. So a record type ID we already know, like record ID is the ID of the record type. Fields, a fields can be a single field or an array of the fields to return. If you don't want to pass the field, you can set the layout type, and there are two types of layout, compact and the full. And by default, the full is the default layout. If you are defining or calling the get record using a layout type, you have to define the mode. And mode can be of three type: create, edit, and view. By default, it's a view mode. And very interesting property here that will be passed with the both with the fields or with the layout type, that is optional fields. So in this optional field, we pass a property to which we are not sure whether the user has the access or not. Suppose there is a age field and we pass that age field with the fields, right? And when we try to fetch the get records and to the age field, the logged in user doesn't have a access. So immediately this wire service throws an error. But if you not sure whether the user has a access or not, then you pass that field to optional. So when we call it in the optional fields, it checks okay whether the user has the access or not. If it has the access, it will return the data. If not, it will ignore it, but it will not throw an error. So that's where we use the optional field. So let's go to our VS Code and create the demo. So let's create the component first. I'll go and say create lightning web component get code demo. Now our component is created, and now in this we'll import the adapter as well as the wire. So let's first import the wire method. So let's go and say I want to call the wire service. Then wire for service need an adapter, and in this demo we are using get record wire adapter that will come from Lightning UI record API. I have that adapter ready, so we need to pass the adapter. Then we have to pass the adapter configuration. Adapter configuration is for which record you want to pass the data, so we have to pass the record ID, and we want the record ID to be dynamic, so we'll say at the rate API record ID, and we need to import the API from the LWC module. And now we need to pass the reactive record ID, so whenever the record ID is available, then it triggers the wire service. Apart from that, we have two options: either we go with the fields or we go with the layout. So we'll go with the fields now. Here we have to pass the multiple fields for which we want the data. So let's import the fields that we want to call. So we'll say import name. I'll give everything capital. Field from at the rate Salesforce schema slash, I will use a count object here, and I'll say from the count object give me the name field. Apart from that, we'll import more fields. One is, I can say, owner name field, and it will be owner object name account, then owner dot name. And then last field is we can use annual revenue. and here we can say account dot annual revenue. So these should be the field API name. Basically you can check in the object manager. So now we have three fields. We'll pass those fields to the fields array. We'll say we want the name field, we want the owner field, and we want the annual revenue. And once we pass these fields, I'll just wrap this up. So once we pass these fields, along with that we can pass the optional field as well as a parameter. But if you are sure your record has the access to all the fields, your user, then it will come as it is, and we're gonna use this wire as a function, because for us it's easy to visualize the data in the console, and to console the data it's easy to use wire as a function. So I'll create a function wire handler, and I'll say if data comes, print the data, console.log data. Yes, so we import the wire, we call the wire, we pass the configuration with the record ID and the fields. And before deploying this, let's add something in the HTML as well. Let's call this as create a card with the title getRecord adapter, and we can add div with the class slds padding around medium. Here data comes, and before deploying let's change the meta tag, and this time we're gonna use the lightning record page, because we can place our component in record page, because we are expecting to get the record ID, and the record ID by default comes mostly if your component is in record page, until unless you pass it from the designer. So let's deploy this now. I'll go to my terminal, I'll run my command sfdx force source push. Now it's deployed. Let's go to our awk. So I'm in my app 0 to hero. I'll go to accounts, because we are expecting account fields, so we are going to place our component into the account record. So I'll open one record, I'll zoom out a little bit, so I'll say edit the page. We are editing the record page, and here we already calling it, and we are consoling the data. So let's go back, and here we're gonna place our component. That component name is get record demo. When we're gonna place it top right hand side, and you can see our card is placed with the header get record adapter, and here data comes. And let's go and see the output quickly. Let's go to the console, inspect console, and here you can see it's printing one console, and it's giving us the fields. The fields are coming only three: annual revenue, name, and owner. And we can print this data on the screen. Let's go and print the data. So let's go to our JS file. Let's store this data and store this into a variable. Let's create three properties on the top. So let's first property is name, second property I'll say owner, and third property I'll say annual revenue. And let's store the name first. We'll try to extract the name. So I'll say this dot name equal to, in the data, go to the fields, if you look at the data carefully, I'll zoom. So this is the data object. Under that I have a field, then I have to choose the field name. I'll come back here and I'll say fields dot name dot value. Okay. And if I go back, you will see under the each field there are two types of, one is the value, one is the display value. So display value is the value that is in the formatted state that usually the user sees, and the value field contains the value that's stored in the database. So what we're gonna do is we'll go and check whether the display value is available. If yes, show the display value, otherwise show the value. So let's go back and say if display value is there, we are using ternary operator, then return the display value, otherwise return value. Same thing we're gonna copy for annual revenue, and we'll say data.fields.annual revenue dot display, and if it's there then go to annual revenue dot display value, otherwise return the value. And let's go for owner as well. We'll say this dot owner equal to, copy this, I'll say fields dot owner and fields dot owner. Let's quickly check whether the owner has the correct format or not. So if we go to the owner, display the display value, otherwise go to the value, and value has so many things, so it by default picked up the display value because it already has a display value. So let's go back and print this out on the screen. We'll say div, and we'll say name equal to, we'll print the name. Similarly, I'll copy this and paste it twice. I'll say the second one is the owner. I'll say owner, print the owner, and the third one is the annual revenue. Annual revenue, print the annual revenue. So let's deploy and see whether it prints the data or not. And it's deployed. Let's go and refresh the page. And now you can see it's printing the name, it's printing the annual revenue, but it's showing one error as well. It's saying of display value. For owner, I guess it's throwing an error. Let's look at that. We'll say display dot fields dot owner dot display value is there, and display value otherwise not. Let's go and check that. Under the fields, we are going to the owner. Owner O is capital here. Pass the capital O, capital O, and let's deploy and see. Now it's deployed. Let's go and refresh the page. And now you can see that my owner name is coming correctly, my revenue is coming in the formatted state, and the name is coming correctly. And now let's go back and see the other variation. Right now we are using the fields, but if I have to use the other variation, that is the layout type, how we can achieve that. So I'll just change the wire adapter here. I'll just comment this out, and I'll create another wire below this, and we'll change this fields to a layout type. We'll say layout types, and I'll say this layout type should be full, and I can say the modes, view mode, these are the default mode. Let's deploy this and see what it gives and what it prints in the console. Now it's deployed. Let's go and refresh the page and see if it gives the same output or not, and what kind of data it gives. So data is coming correctly, it's printing correctly, our component is loading, but let's see what it returns in the fields. So if I go to the fields, it returns all the fields that exist in that layout. So you don't need to call explicitly each field. But if you have less field, like 4 5 fields, you go with the explicit naming like we did with the fields with this approach. The first one in which you define the fields. But if you have to fetch all the fields, you can go with the layout type. So any approach is fine based on your need. Now we know how getRecord works, but calling this again and again is tedious, right? So for this, there is another adapter that we look into the next video. So I'll see you in the next video.